What I'm trying to do is find out how much movement is acceptable in the constant velocity joint of a 944. This one is from my 1986. It's a normal CV joint that goes with the normally aspirated. It's not a turbo. If I hold this down and move it, that's movement actually on the splines. I've had a look at 2 or 3 now of these joints and they all move on the splines. So if I lift it up a little bit, that's held down and jammed. If I lift it up a little bit, that's the overall movement on the constant velocity joint. I don't get any clicking, but what I am getting is a vibration, and I was just wondering whether it was these. So that's the total movement. Is that acceptable or not? That's the one side. If I turn it over, show the other side. Again, if I hold it down, there's movement on the spline. Or splines. And if I lift it up a bit to engage the balls, that's the sort of movement I get. I'm not sure it's the constant velocity joint. If I pull it all the way down, you can see that's movement on the splines. If I sort of bring the balls and carrier into play, that's the small amount of movement I get there. I guess there should be movement. Perhaps there shouldn't be any movement at all. And then, if taking into account the movement on the splines and the carrier, that's what I get. Does anybody have any views on that one? This is from a turbo, so the balls are evidently bigger, and I think the shaft has 25 splines. So again, if I hold it right down, I've got movement on the splines. And then if I hold it up a little bit to bring all the balls into play, again, a little bit of movement here. Wait a minute. And I get a little bit of movement on the balls. A larger amount of that movement is on the splines. Overall, is that movement through wear, or is that normal? Do I replace that joint or not? The other videos were done inside my workroom. This is a turbo, or on this side of the car is currently a turbo shaft and constant velocity joints both ends on this one side. There appears little movement. I've put the handbrake on and there appears very little movement where it joins the hub. On the other hand, where the CV joint is at the gearbox, there's much more movement. In that CV joint, and it's the same on the other side, in that it's the one next to the gearbox that appears to be suffering. So now I'm on the other side. This is the passenger side in the UK. Again, the handbrake's on. The movement well, that's the movement in the CV joint. Where it joins the gearbox. This joint and the shaft is the original ones that came with the car, so they're the normally aspirated 944, but I changed the gearbox, and I also, which for an S2 gearbox, because the other one broke, and I've also got these turbo shafts. There's only one on and joint on the one side, and again there's the hub, and doesn't appear to be much movement there. I'm doing it from the end next to the gearbox, so that's where the noise is coming from. It's not appreciably moving the joint that's in the hub. Again, expert advice would be great. Thank you. CV joints, the turbo stroke S2 968 joints, which I've ordered from Base Part. And at least at this stage, what's interesting is there's absolutely no movement at all in that joint. In comparison to the used ones that were on the car, or from the spares that I bought, I've manoeuvred this around a little bit, but there would appear to be no movement on the splines, or indeed in the balls, or the race. Okay, very impressed with that. So these are the two half shafts with my spare one, which I bought on eBay. It was two actually, so there's a pair. And this one, which is off my 86 Porsche. Because it looked slightly different. You know, this boot is much further in. I just wondered whether or not it should have been further back. There's obviously it's a shoulder there that's been properly fixed, but when it is in the proper place, probably here, and it did have cable ties on, which I've taken off that one boot. These I've had the vernier on it and they are the same diameter. So everything looks as if it will fit. And I guess from some correspondence that I've had on the forum that this is probably off a turbo, not a Boxster. Evidently the Boxster, the internal CV joint is the same diameter, is the same size, but this one, the external one, is different. So in my case, these CV joints both have the same Porsche number. So it would appear that this comes off a 944 turbo, which has the 15 splines on the shaft. Obviously a 15 spline CV joint, and my research on the internet says that the balls inside are also larger diameter. The whole unit's supposed to be stronger. If I push both of these CV joints in as far as they will go, compressing it as much as possible, they measure 51 centimeters. And similarly, if I do the same to this other one, they're just over 51 centimeters. So I think that should be okay. Seem very, very similar.